Forgiveness. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Mark Twain. Forgiveness is a virtue that is very hard to practice. Each one of us has had bitter experiences, and the pain, suffering, and hurt vividly stands out in one's memory. It is just so hard to forget, let alone forgive. I had been struggling with ideas on how to begin a conversation with Devang about forgiveness. In 2010, we were watching the inaugural ceremony of the FIFA World Cup. Nelson Mandela seemed so happy. He had brought the FIFA World Cup to South Africa in the hope that it would help establish South Africa as a democratic nation where diversity was respected and discrimination based on color was a thing of the past. It dawned on me that now was the opportunity. Who could provide a better example of forgiveness than Nelson Mandela? When Mandela was tried for treason in 1956, he was sent to the maximum security prison on Robben Island, 5 miles offshore from Cape Town. Several protesters against apartheid were jailed on Robben Island. His cell was 7 feet by 9 feet and had no bed. In his book, Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela recounts, "I would walk the length of my cell in 3 paces. When I lay down, I could feel the wall with my feet and my head graze the concrete at the other side." He was a Class D prisoner, so he could have only 1 visitor every 6 months. He was allowed to write or receive a letter once in 6 months. The letter too was censored. He was, in effect, cut off from the world. Mandela was assigned the job of breaking rocks at the limestone quarry. The limestone dust caused lung damage, and the harsh sunlight affected his eyesight. When his eldest son died in a car accident, he was denied permission to attend the funeral. After 18 years, he was transferred from the Robben Island prison to the Pollsmoor prison and then the Victor Verster prison. As the Free Nelson Mandela campaign gained momentum, Mandela was finally released after 27 years in prison at the age of 72. Mandela displayed no anger towards his oppressors. He showed no bitterness for the hard times in prison. He was asked how he could forget the terrible years in prison. Didn't the decades of suffering make him angry? How could he keep hatred in check? He replied, "Hating clouds the mind. It gets in the way of strategy. Leaders cannot afford to hate." Soon after his release, he led the African National Congress to victory in the first multiracial election. He became South Africa's first black president. F.W. de Klerk, who, as president, had ordered his release, became the first deputy president. Mandela thought along the same lines as Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind." For his inauguration, he invited Paul Gregory, who had served as a prison warden in Robben Island prison. He dedicated his time to building trust between the black and white South Africans using the power of forgiveness. He invited Percy Yutar, the prosecutor who had demanded the death penalty for Mandela in 1956, for a meal. After the meeting, Mandela commented that Yutar had only been doing his job when he pushed for death penalty. Mandela wanted South Africa to become a rainbow nation that took pride in its diversity. He reassured the white minority that they would be protected, while ensuring that the black majority would finally get what was due after decades of struggle. He made sure that his personal staff and security team comprised both black and white South Africans. He realized that the distrust and the scars of oppression would take time to overcome. A few weeks after the inauguration ceremony of the FIFA World Cup, Devang and I went to a video store. I noticed the CD of the film Invictus on the shelf. As children need reinforcement to imbibe the values we want them to nurture, I decided to buy the video and give us another opportunity to talk about Mandela. Invictus, which in Latin means undefeated or unconquered, is a poem written by William Ernest Henley. It inspired Mandela in jail for 27 years, giving him the strength to remain unconquered despite the seclusion and oppression. The movie recounts the story of how Mandela used a sport to bring together a nation. Mandela knew that the blacks did not support the mostly white National Rugby Union team called Springboks. Whenever Springboks played in South Africa, the black community would support the opposition. Mandela believed that rugby could serve as the balm the two communities needed. The Rugby World Cup was to be hosted by South Africa in 1995. Mandela urged the black-dominated South African Sports Committee, formed post-apartheid, to lend their support to Springboks. Many were opposed to the idea, but Mandela persevered. He met with the captain of Springboks, Francois Pienaar, and shared his dream of a Springboks victory, bringing the two communities together and uniting South Africa. As the team started interacting with the fans, the unimaginable happened. The support for Springboks in the black population grew as the tournament progressed, and South Africa defeated New Zealand in the final. Mandela presented the cup to Pienaar wearing a green Springbok jersey bearing Pienaar's number 6. This event did more for reconciliation than even Mandela could have hoped for. De Klerk later said, Mandela won the hearts of millions of white rugby fans. The Rugby World Cup final helped put the past behind. Mandela continued to win hearts long after he stepped down from office. He offered a scholarship to the son of one of his prison wardens, Christo Brand. The founding father of democracy left behind a united South Africa where everyone has equal rights. He left the world with the most powerful message of forgiveness. Scott Johnson wrote in Smithsonian Magazine that Zozo, a former prisoner at Robben Island and now a tour guide, told him, "Our leader Nelson Mandela taught us not to take revenge on our enemies. And because of this, today we are free, free, free." As we ended our discussion, I said to Devang, that is why Nelson Mandela's example will be given to generations that follow. Throughout history, there have been astonishing and heart-rending examples of forgiveness. British MP Anthony Berry died in a bomb blast planned by the Irish Republic Army in Brighton in 1984. The bomb had been planted by Patrick Magee. Berry's daughter Jo tried to come to terms with her loss. She did not want to become bitter and immersed herself in conflict mediation. When Magee was released from prison in 1999 as part of the Good Friday Agreement, Jo expressed a desire to meet him. The meeting lasted for 3 hours. They met again, and after several meetings and many conversations, they became friends. Jo forgave Magee. Together, they decided to spread the message across the globe about healing and forgiveness. During the Vietnam War, napalm bombs dropped by the US caused devastation. A young girl, Kim Phuc, was severely injured during one such attack. A photo of Kim received a lot of media attention that served to highlight the ravages of the Vietnam War. Kim lost some of her family members in that attack. She had to undergo 17 surgeries as a result of the injuries she sustained. Yet, she displayed no bitterness. She was willing to forgive those who were responsible for the pain and suffering. In 1996, she met the pilot who had led the attack at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., and forgave him in person. When we visited Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, where approximately 1,000 defenseless Indians were massacred by the British, Devang asked me, "Why were Indians so tolerant? Why did they not hate the British?" I replied, "Son, we were fortunate to have someone who showed us the path of tolerance, non-violence, and forgiveness." Gandhi saw the British rulers divide his countrymen. He saw a land as rich as India brought to economic ruin. He saw the agony of losing family members when he met with the families of those who had been massacred at Jallianwala Bagh. He himself underwent enormous hardships in prison for several years. Yet, he had no anger towards the British. In his famous Quit India speech, where he asked the British to leave and launched the Quit India movement, he shared his feelings about the British. There is the question of your attitude towards the British. I have noticed that there is hatred towards the British among the people. The people say they are disgusted with their behavior. We must get rid of this feeling. Our quarrel is not with the British people. We fight their imperialism. At a time when I may have to launch the biggest struggle of my life, I may not harbor hatred against anybody. Children need help to realize the power of forgiveness. I remember the case of a 12-year-old boy who was brought in with complaints of tiredness. He had no other physical symptoms. Children are often brought for consultation for a physical manifestation which turns out to have a psychological cause. When I asked questions pertaining to his psychological health and well-being, the parents mentioned that the boy was unable to complete his homework, did not enjoy games, and seemed unhappy. He got angry often and just seemed disinterested in everything, including studies. On probing further, it became clear that the behavioral change started after an incident at school. The boy had had a fight with a classmate, and the teacher had taken the fighting duo to the headmaster. The boy was reprimanded and had since developed problems. The boy felt that while he had not started the fight, he had been held equally responsible. He was angry at the child who started the fight, the teacher, and the headmaster. This incident had taken place 2 months before. The parents had held meetings with the parents of the other child, the teacher, and the headmaster to understand what exactly had happened. The boy had been selected to represent the school in a declamation contest. His classmate, who had not been selected, had come to the boy's desk to tell him that he did not deserve to be selected. An argument had ensued, and the child, who had not been selected, slapped the boy. The boy slapped him back, and it turned into a full-fledged fight, with the class teacher separating the two boys. The boy felt that he had been treated unfairly as he had not started the fight but had only retaliated. No disciplinary action other than a letter to the two boys had been issued. The headmaster and the teacher felt that the boy was making too much of the incident. The boy could just not get over the incident, and it started seriously affecting his life. Over a course of 3 consultations, the boy realized that it was only he who was suffering, and for him to move on, he needed to forgive his classmate for what he had done. It took considerable counseling for the boy to finally agree that forgiveness was the answer. He eventually forgave and moved on. His grades became what they were before the incident, and he started to enjoy his favorite sport again and became cheerful. Forgiveness is indeed powerful. It can provide closure. We have to rid ourselves and our children of the misconception that it makes a person small. It actually makes the person bigger. Mahatma Gandhi believed the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. If our children see us forgiving those who have wronged us, so will they. If our children see us becoming bitter and seeking revenge, so will they. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that that prisoner was you. Stephen B. Smedes.